How's it going, everybody? It's your world champion here, and we are back diving into the world of Bleach. I am here to talk about my thoughts and overall score for the second part of the Soul Society arc. The last we left off with the Soul Society arc was Ichigo confronting Byakuya. Obviously, he couldn't defeat him, so Yoruichi took him aside, took him away, and was just like, hey, give us 3 days. This kid is going to be strong enough to defeat you, Byakuya. 3 days, and we'll end this fight. So we are here to talk about those 3 days and a little bit afterwards, because there is a lot of stuff to cover, to talk about, to gush about, and to just have fun talking about. So to continue onwards, Ichigo is going to train to learn how to achieve Bankai. Now, if you don't know what Bankai is, first of all, why you're watching this video about Bleach? Well, hopefully this is your introduction to Bleach, and I'm helping you along with that. So basically, the Bankai is the second stage of a Soul Reaper's release of their Zanpakuto. The first stage is the Shikai. So we'll use Renji for example. Renji has Zabimaru, and Zabimaru is the name of his Shikai. Now his Bankai has a different name that we'll get into later on. Basically, this gives them like almost a 10 times power boost onto their power, which is insane. And we see some crazy Bankais in the series of Bleach. It's ridiculous. In fact, we're about to see one here fairly shortly, but of course Ichigo, he's protesting. He's just like, I could have beaten him. Like, why didn't you let me fight? They're all gonna die. But luckily, Yoruichi reassures Ichigo, just like, don't worry, Captain Ukitake was there. He's a good guy, and he's gonna make sure that everyone's going to be safe from everything that's happened here. So Ichigo's gonna train in 3 days to master Bankai. And he's already gotten to the first step, which is like manifesting your Zanpakuto into the real world. That happened during the Zaraki fight, where, you know, Zangetsu came out, healed him, you know, helped him out, kind of teaching him to use his power. So we already got a little bit of a hint of what to do with Bankai, but we're basically just gonna rush Ichigo to get to this form, so that way he can save Rukia and defeat Byakuya and have the strength in order to get away. So that's basically what Ichigo's doing in this time. Now, during this time, we meet up with a lot of the other characters that we've either met in this arc or that actually came with Ichigo to the Soul Society. And we're going to start with this night here, where it's going to be Uryu versus Mayuri. And I'm not going to lie, this might be my favorite fight during this part of the arc, because there is a lot of setup for the final arc of Bleach just in this fight with Uryu versus Mayuri. So him and Orihime meet up with somebody from Squad 11, and you know, he's questioning them. Granted, he's drunk, but he's like questioning him, being belligerent and all that. And then members of Squad 12 come by, knock him out, and they're just like, no, don't worry about him, he's just a drunk, you know, just come with us, we'll help you out. And Uryu's like, wait a minute, this is odd. Why are they helping us? Like, yeah, he might have been drunk, but he had the right idea to question why we said we were part of a different squad, and why we're wearing a different squad than what we said, why we're wearing their emblem on our shirts. And so at that point, Uryu tries to warn Orihime, and then all those squad members just blow up. And now, I'm going to try not to do this too much, because I am reading the manga as well as watching the anime. But the manga actually does like a little short backstory to one of these Soul Reapers, kind of adding more fuel to the fire of Mayuri as a character and just how shitty of a character he is. So yeah, that's when we meet Mayuri Kurotsuchi of Squad 12. He is the captain of Squad 12, and he's accompanied by Nemu Kurotsuchi, his lieutenant. And him and Uryu have an all-out fight. Luckily, Squad 11 guy takes Orihime away and just runs. Like, he is not there to play around at all. So Mayuri, you know, he wants Orihime to, you know, experiment on, and Uryu is just like, no, that's not gonna happen. So they have a fight. You know, we learn Mayuri's, you know, the scientist type. He has a lot of like poisons and all this stuff, and in fact, he doesn't really care about other people, as we see with his relationship with Nemu. And turns out Nemu's actually a being that Kurotsuchi actually created. So they kind of have like this father-daughter relationship, but it's kind of like an abusive relationship if we're being honest. Of course, Mayuri starts preaching and he starts monologuing about Quincy's and how they're pretty boring to him, and that the last one he experimented on was an old man, and he tosses this picture to Uryu, picture that he's just carrying nonchalantly everywhere. I mean, he must have some sort of thing for like beheaded Quincy's or something, because we see that, at least in the anime, we see it through like Uryu's glasses, the reflection, that it's actually his grandfather. And of course, Uryu swears by the honor of the Quincy that he's gonna kill Mayuri, and he uses this technique. It's basically like using spirit energy to make these threads around him in order to keep going. And Mayuri makes mention of this. He's like, wow, not many Quincy's can use this kind of power. You are kind of interesting. I might have to do a few more experiments on you. But before he can do that, we get a nice little look back of Uryu with his relationship to like his father and his grandfather. And we see that, his father is a doctor. Yeah, he might be a Quincy, but he sees no benefit in being one, no profit in it. And his grandfather kind of agrees. He's like, well, yeah, there's no compensation for being a Quincy these days and age. So your father, he has a point. He has a family he needs to take care of. So you really can't be doing things like this. But Uryu wants none of that. He just wants to be strong and powerful to protect everybody. And we learn a little bit more about this glove that Uryu was wearing and was training with during this time. It basically, the glove puts you at the peak of your power, like however strong you're gonna be. And if you you can't remove the glove at all, because if you do, you're gonna use all of your power, and you're not gonna be able to be a Quincy anymore. So what does Uryu do? He removes the glove and attains power even greater than a captain. So Mayuri uses his Bankai, which is our first Bankai we get to see in the entire series. And it's a giant baby with knives and gas. But Uryu easily dispatches of that. He takes care of Mayuri, and Mayuri actually like slices himself and becomes like this liquid form and says, you may not have killed me, but you did defeat me. So have this victory as you want. In a couple days, I'll be back good as new, and I'm gonna kill you then. So that leaves Uryu with his fight. He starts limping towards the giant tower where Rukia is. He gets on top of the steps, and Tozen's there. And Tozen just easily puts him to sleep and puts him in jail. So that's the end of like that first night of this arc. So Uryu may have defeated Mayuri, but he still gets captured, thrown in jail. So the next day, we see that Orihime is safe, and she's actually chilling with Squad 11. Yeah, because Yachiru found her, and she calls him Maki Maki. I forgot what his actual name is, and he's kind of shit. And like, he's just kind of there just to be there. But we also have Ikaku and Yumi Chika there as well, just kind of talking to Orihime and getting the gist of everything that's going on. And guess who's up and ready to fight Ichigo again? Oh, that's right. It's Kenpachi, and he wants to find him ASAP. Now, going back a little bit, Chad, Uryu, and Ganju are in jail. So Uryu wakes up, he sees that Ganju and Chad are there, and they're in jail, basically to be questioned about Captain Aizen's death. Because, they are the main suspects for being intruders to the Soul Society. So all that makes sense, it's all great. And, we cut over to Hinataro getting scolded by Unohana for helping the Ryoka, and he basically gets imprisoned as well because, he disobeyed orders. And then later on that day, we see that all three of the lieutenants escaped. So Renji leaves, his Zanbakuto actually, Zabimaru, manifests and is just like, hey, I want to fight Zangetsu again, so let's get up, let's get healed, let's get stronger, let's go, let's do this. And Renji's like, no, that's not the person I need to fight. You know exactly who I'm gunning for now. So Renji escapes. Izuru, he doesn't escape because Gin Ichimaru, his captain, comes and rescues him. And then Momo just leaves after reading the letter from Aizen and crying. And one thing I do want to mention too is the anime here actually does what I call an in-canon filler, where we see like their past and being in the Soul Reaper Academy together. Basically, Renji, Izuru, and Momo, how they were a good team together, and they actually, went into the real world to kind of fight some hollows, some dummy hollows, mind you. We see Hisagi there as well, and this ties in to some things later on that get revealed. So it's actually really cool because the manga only did like maybe a couple panels here and there of their time together and how, they're part of the advanced class and all this stuff. 3 lieutenants leave and we end up going to the night. So that night, Ichigo finishes off his first day of training for Bankai, and he gets some time to just rest and relax, kind of heal some of his wounds from his training with Zangetsu, which is basically, hey, find the right me in this sea of swords, and that's the only one that can defeat. Ichigo's making some progress and all that, and Yoruichi kind of teases Ichigo, saying, oh, I'm gonna be a cat in this bath with you. Oh, you're upset that I'm my cat? Oh, you little pervert. And then teasing him because she transformed back into a human. But anyways, he asks Yoruichi the big important question that we actually all want to know. What and who is Urahara? Why does he know so much about the Soul Society? Why is he so powerful too? Like, what and who is Kisuke Urahara? And the simple answer is he used to be the 12th Division captain, and he started the research and development squad of the Soul Society. So that's basically that big reveal right there. I thought, that's something that we kind of needed to know. We don't know the circumstances of why he's not a captain anymore. Keep that mystery until later on when we actually need it. And trust me, we will get to that moment at some point later on, because it's one of my favorite little mini, I guess you could say mini arc or just arc in general, but don't worry, we'll get to that. I can't wait to talk about that. But enough about Ichigo. He's just training, he's just resting, relaxing, whatever. We gotta talk about these Soul Reapers here. Hitsugaya ends up confronting Gin and basically, accusing him of killing Aizen because of some things passing comments that Gin and Aizen had said to each other in the past couple of days. And as Hitsugaya is about to go towards Gin, Momo appears, and Hitsugaya's like, oh shit, Momo, you can't be here, you can't take out Gin, because A, you're not strong enough, and B, I can't let you do that. I can't let you be the one to take that on your own. And instead of pointing her sword at Gin, Momo points her sword at Hitsugaya. Now, bit of context with these two. These two seem to have grown up together in the Rukon district, and of course Momo left before Hitsugaya to train as a Soul Reaper. So they have a history together. So why would Momo fall for this obvious fake letter? Well, I shouldn't say it's a fake letter. We'll get to that here soon. I know I'm saying we're getting to things soon later on, but trust me, we'll get to that soon, don't worry. So Momo, she basically reads the letter, and long story short, Aizen had said that Hitsugaya was going to use the Sogyoku, which has the power of 1,000,000 Zanpakutos. He was going to use it to destroy the Soul Society. Now Momo, you grew up with Hitsugaya. Why would you think he would want to do that? What in your mind would make you think that Hitsugaya would want to destroy the Soul Society? Now I know the answer to this, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Again, there's that little comment again to you guys, because everything makes sense. But I just remember watching the anime episode, and they're playing like the sad little song with like the piano, which is going like ding 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 ding, but it's like the verse where it has like the violin going. I'll tell you my thoughts about that later. Because oh my god, it was just so perfect. Just listening to that song and seeing this melodrama play out, so great. So as Hitsugaya tries to dodge Momo to go after Gin, he ends up like just punching her and just knocking her away. And of course Hitsugaya goes in against Gin and they have a little fight. Rangiku shows up to kind of interfere a little bit, and it turns out her and Gin have some history with each other. Like, it's so good. I love it because, like, we're getting character motivations, we're getting character backgrounds and backstories, and like we're just getting hints and pieces here and there where, like, and that's what I love about Kubo. He doesn't give us a full backstory right away. He always gives us just little breadcrumbs to follow, little pieces to, like, make our recipe. So, like, he's giving us a chili can, and then he's giving us some beans, and then he's giving us the meat, and then he's giving us, like, the little spices that go on top of it to make our perfect chili that is Bleach. Yeah, that's right, I use a chili analogy. Deal with it. So they end up just kind of going their separate ways, and of course Hitsugaya and Rangiku, they are still very skeptical about Gin Ichimaru and even Izuru, but that pretty much ends the nighttime portion. So now we move on to training day 2, and there's not really much that goes on during the second day. We have Yoruichi contemplating extending Ichigo's training if his spiritual pressure isn't strong enough, or if he hasn't achieved Bankai in that state, because the way Ichigo is training for Bankai is very harmful to the soul. Kisuke Urahara even tested out this way of achieving Bankai, and he was able to do it within 3 days, but that was like the absolute limit that a soul could do it, was 3 days. Yoruichi has learned time and time again, and has even been told by Kisuke, that Ichigo is a lot different. He is somebody that, like, he has a lot of power, and he has this kind of drive, if you will, to do impossible things. And so Yoruichi, she's like, okay, if he doesn't achieve Bankai in the 3 days, I will go ahead and extend the training. But unfortunately for her, they find out through Renji, who has found where they're training, that Rukia's execution has been pushed to the next day. So Ichigo's just like, okay, yeah, we don't have any time to rest. I need to achieve Bankai now. And the rest of the day is just going to Rukia as she remembers Cayenne's death. So we knew that she had killed Ganju's brother, and that's pretty much what's, like, depressing her, and why she's just accepted her fate of dying, is because she's been holding on to this burden for so long that she killed Cayenne Shiba. Technically, yes, she did kill Cayenne, but she didn't really swing a sword at him. But the story with that is basically she joined Squad 13, and she met Cayenne Shiba, who was a really, really good lieutenant. You know, he was the kind of guy that, like, would always have everybody around and kind of be the person that everybody would go to and just admire and all that. He had a wife and everything, and, you know, they were all happy together. And Rukia, you know, she admired Cayenne. But, and then this is a huge but, one day, his wife's squad gets attacked. Now, I kind of like how the anime did this a little better, because they actually had the wife, like, attack people and all that before she ended up dying, and we actually kind of see that a little bit. So Cayenne, he's running off to go fight the Hollow, and Rukia and Captain Ukitake go to back him up. And so they meet up with the Hollow, and Cayenne goes to attack. Turns out this Hollow has 2 powers. One, it can destroy at least 1 Zanpakuto a night, and that only goes to, like, the first Soul Reaper that touches him. So there's that power. His second power is he can take over a Soul Reaper's body, which he ends up doing to Cayenne. So Cayenne is taken over by this Hollow. He tries to attack everybody. Rukia tries to run. Ukitake tries to kill him, but, you know, because Ukitake has this uncurable illness, he can't really come to defeat this monster, this being that has taken over Cayenne. So Rukia comes back. She has her sword drawn, but she doesn't swing it at Cayenne. Instead, the Hollow that's, like, controlling his body, like, leaps up towards her, and then I guess Cayenne was able to take control for 1 split second and have Rukia kill him in that moment. But that's basically what happened. The person that she admired the most, no, actually 2 of them, because his wife died too, they both died, and one of them was by her hands, and she had to bring the body back to the Shiba clan. So that's basically what the second day of training was basically just finding out, okay, Rukia's execution got moved up to tomorrow. Ichigo, he might have to extend his training. It basically added more. It made the stakes a little higher for this arc and for this coming conflict that we have. Okay, so here we are, execution day. Everyone's getting ready. We actually get to see like some other captains and their thoughts on everything. So we have Captain Komomura. He's saying, he's very loyal to Squad 1's captain, the Captain General and all that, Yamamoto. He is basically just dead set, loyal to that man to no end. And Captain Tozen, he is somebody who's following his own sense of justice. So he believes, kind of like with Byakuya in a way, his own sense of justice is the way to go, and it's the way of the less bloodshed. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that at a later date. Not later in this episode, but at a later date. So we see their little things. We meet up with Captain of Squad 2, Soifone. She is captain of the Punishment Force, and we meet her lieutenant as well, who's just a fat piece of shit. So Soifone, she's basically just like, I'm here to follow orders. I'm here to execute the plan. That is my thing. We see later on Kyoraku. He's kind of questioning whether or not he wants to do something. Now, what that something is, we don't really know, but he is kind of contemplating with it now. But he has his resolve. He's gonna do it. We see Ukitake. He comes out of this chamber and he's ready to destroy the Sokyoku. So he's going to do that to kind of save Rukia. Now, what about Squad 11? Squad 11 is running around taking directions from Yachiru, so they're getting lost everywhere. Lost to the point where they bust into Squad 4 and free Uryu, Chad, and Gantu from the jail cell. And so they're joined in that group and they start running around still. They are basically looking for a fight. Yeah, that's basically their mission. And then last, Renji. Renji's done with his training, so it looks like he's attained a Bankai. And he has this talk with Yoruichi. He's like, do you think that Ichigo can attain Bankai? And Yoruichi, she kind of talks in like a riddle or metaphor or whatever, but she asks Renji, do you remember the first time you learned to walk or to run? That's just something that we instinctively just know. It's like breathing, for example. We just know how to breathe. We don't even think about breathing, we just breathe. And she says that about Ichigo. She's like, he has the instinct, he has the drive to attain Bankai. Now, whether or not he'll do it is another question, but I believe he can do it. So that's where Renji leaves off. He leaves to go, hopefully, try to save Rukia as well, and cut back over to Squad 11, where Zaraki's group run into Komomura and Tozen, and their lieutenants, Iba and Hisagi. Zaraki basically just wants a fight, so he wants to fight all 4 of them, but instead it's going to be 3-on-4 because Ikkaku and Yumichika end up staying behind and wanting to fight the lieutenants, while the rest of the group just runs away trying to save Rukia. So the lieutenants fight these two, and then Zaraki's just left to fight Komomura and Tozen. Now, I'm going to talk about these fights here, even though in the series they kind of happen in different times. So I'm going to start with Yumichika versus Hisagi. Not much of a fight. We didn't really get to see much of any of it. The only tease we get, again, that's that little breadcrumb sprinkling here. The only tease we get is Yumichika saying that, there's an unspoken rule in Squad 11 saying that, all Zanpakutos are fighting ones. There's no use for Kido in Squad 11. And apparently his Zanpakuto has some sort of Kido spell thing to it, because he's like, here's the real name of my Zanpakuto, and next thing we know, he's completely healed from fighting a lieutenant, and Hisagi's just on the ground saying that he has no energy left. And also another thing to note too from this is Yumichika's little speech. He says, do you know why I'm the 5th seat? And apparently, I guess he has enough strength to be a 3rd seat, but because Ikkaku's in there, he just lets Ikkaku have that seat. And he doesn't like the look of 4. So he just stuck with 5 because that's the closest number that looks like 3. Again, tying into him as a character and his little quirks, I really like that a lot. But it also lets you know that, hey, he's actually stronger than what a 5th seat normally would be. Just a little food for thought. Moving on to Ikaku versus Iba. Again, this isn't much of a fight that we get to see. It's more of just them kind of talking like, okay, you know, we're doing this. They're kind of teasing each other a little bit. Now, I guess they kind of do sparring matches every now and then because, you know, they're just kind of sitting there drinking and, you know, licking their wounds and all that. Loser gets the sake, winner gets to take a nap, and that's it. The biggest thing to come from this, though, is just to kind of hype up Ichigo later on, because Iba does make mention that he's fighting Captain Kuchi on Sogyoku Hill. And Ikaku's just like, yeah, that's Ichigo. He's fighting and he's gonna win. And that's basically all that was with that. But now, we're going to talk about Zaraki versus Komamura and Tozen. This was pretty cool, because this adds to Zaraki's character even more. So, they have a good little fight. Tozen actually tries to take on Zaraki one-on-one. So, Komamura gets out of the way, and Tozen goes straight to his Bankai. Now, I'm not going to try to pronounce his Bankai right now, but what his Bankai does, basically, if you're not holding his sword, you can't use any of your senses. You can't see, you can't smell, you can't hear, you can't taste, you can't touch, you can't even sense spiritual pressure. So Zaraki's in there in the dark getting cut up, and he's just like, this is boring. Like, I don't want to have to think to fight. I just want to fight. And he starts thinking about his subordinates and what they would do in this situation. So, like, yeah, you know, Ikaku's just like, you know, I would do this. And Yachiru's like, oh, I would do that. But the best one is Yumi Chika, who says, I would just give up and just try to run away. And then that gives Zaraki the idea of, like, instead of trying to counter whenever he feels the sword, like, slice him, he needs to just, you know, let him cut him a bit. And then grab onto the sword and then slice him. So he does that a couple times, and that takes out Tozen. And then we get to see Komamura and Zaraki clash together, and the best part about this is getting the face reveal of Komamura, because like the most we've seen of him, he's had like this giant helmet on, and he's hiding his face, and we can't see what he looks like. We don't know what he looks like until here, when Zaraki like breaks off his mask, and it's like he's like this fox dog person. So that's really cool. There's a lot more to Komamura later on, especially in the final arc. There's a lot more to him, and we'll get to that at some point. One of these days we'll get to Komamura and his story. You don't get to see the rest of that fight. We just say hi, bye, okay, that was nice, bye. So next on our list is Renji versus Byakuya. This fight hurts. This fight hurts. We get Renji's motivations as to what he wants to do, you know, because ever since Rukia was adopted by the Kuchiki family, he's kicked himself time and time and time again for not being able to stop her, and for just kind of letting her go and letting the Kuchiki family, especially Byakuya, just take her away. And ever since sensing Byakuya's power, he's wanted to surpass him. And so now that Renji's achieved Bankai, he's at least on that road to surpassing Byakuya. And so they have a fight. Well, kind of a fight. Renji tries, and we start to see the limitations of Bankai and why it's supposed to take so long to master Bankai. As Renji's using his Bankai, he's kind of getting weaker. Yeah, he's getting a little weaker, and Byakuya notices this. He's just like, look, the reason it takes so long to master Bankai is because you need to know how strong your Bankai is and how much power it actually lets out. And also, fun fact, I have Bankai too, or did you forget about that? So we get to see Byakuya's Bankai, and it's just more flower petals. Now, it sounds more boring than I just said, but trust me, when you see this page of all these swords going out and then just breaking up into petals and then just washing as in a wave onto Renji, it's so good. and it matches Byakuya perfectly. Like, I don't think I've even touched on this aspect where like each Zanpakuto and their release and their power and all that really speaks to the person's character. I just wanted to mention it here because, especially with Byakuya, like his being like these flower petals and these graceful blades that just fly in the air. Oh, it's so good. Again, it matches his personality to a T. Same with Renji, with his Bankai and even his power, you know. It's more of a forceful kind of thing. Something that's like, but it's also fluid to where he can, you know, get away with things and like he can plan and fight the way that he wants to fight, you know. Kind of wild in a way, but not, it's still kind of reined in too. And especially in that last arc. But of course, Renji loses to Byakuya, but not without at least finally getting a good shot in him. Like, finally having that resolve to get up, give him one last shot. And, you know, again, we're paralleling him in Ichigo, which is done very well, not only in the anime, but in the manga as well. But fortunately, it's not your turn, Renji. And that actually kind of becomes the theme a lot in the series, where Renji just, he gets bodied a lot, especially with his Bankai. During that time, Rukia is being transported to Sogyoku Hill, and she meets up with Gin Ichimaru. And God, I think I like Gin a lot more than I hate him because of his character work, and I can't wait to talk about that. But anyways, at this moment, he meets up with Rukia, and we get kind of Rukia's internal monologue about Gin, how like he's always been sort of creepy to her, like a snake just coiling and slithering around like her throat and her body and all that. And he just comes up to her and he's just like, you know, Renji's not dead yet. And luckily Renji's, you know, he's not dead. Later on he gets healed by Hinata, and we see like a fun moment with one of Renji's subordinates, because as Renji was going towards Byakuya, he was kind of cutting down his own men. So that wasn't too good either. But yeah, so Renji's gonna survive, and Gin just looks to Rukia, and he's like, you want me to save you? And this shakes Rukia, because at first she had the resolve. She was ready to die. But then he gave her a little bit of hope, and then he said, oh, I'm just kidding. And he walked away. He gave her that little sliver of hope, and then immediately crushed it. God, it was so fucking good. I loved it so much. But on that note, Rukia gets sent to the Sogyoku. All the captains are lining up to watch the execution, and before the execution happens, Yamamoto gives Rukia a bit of peace of mind. He's like, you know, do you have any last words before we kill you? And she basically asked them to let Ichigo and the group leave safely. At first, you know, we meet up with the lieutenant of Squad 4, Isane. She's like, well, that's kind of cruel because he's not going to do that at all. But Captain Unohana's there. She's just like, no, it was giving her peace of mind, because even though he doesn't plan to uphold that word, he's still giving her a peace of mind, so that way she can die peacefully and just accept her fate. But as the Sogyoku was just like powering up, you know, getting unsealed and lifting up the spear, and then it turned into this giant phoenix and then just goes into Rukia, guess what stops the Sogyoku? That's right, Ichigo! Ichigo comes to save the day at the very last second. I love this scene so much. It is so freaking good. Like, him just stopping the Sogyoku and then talking to Rukia real quick. He's about to go in against the Sogyoku again, but he's lucky that Ukitake and Kyoraku destroy it on time. And then he just goes up onto the little pedestal, destroys it, holds on to Rukia. He's just like, look, I'm going to say this again. I'm saving you. And then he throws Rukia at Renji, and that part is actually kind of funny. He just kind of tosses her like a little football, and Renji catches her. Then Ichigo punks out 3 lieutenants without his Zanpakuto. Yeah, so Renji just books it, and then the 3 lieutenants there, you know, the lieutenant of Squad 2, I think it's like Omaida or something. I don't know, I don't like him. There's Isane from Squad 4, and I forgot his name, but he's the lieutenant of Squad 1, right underneath Yamamoto. So they all go in, they all release their Zanpakutos, and Ichigo's in the way, and he just punks all of them out. Like, as soon as Omaeda like unleashes his big chain ball thing, like Ichigo destroys it with a gut punch, and then he just gives like a nice little like uppercut kind of thing to the dude from Squad 1, and then Isane just kind of gets pushed back a little bit, and then he takes his Zanpakuto and blocks an attack from Byakuya, starting their fight. I cannot wait for that fight. But before we get into that fight, we have a few other little like skirmishes we need to talk about. So Kyoraku and Ikitake, they followed their own kind of justice and all that, and of course Yamamoto did not like this, and those two just book it, and Yamamoto chases after them, and we get a nice little kind of more of a character introduction of the two. You know, they're kind of like the people that you would meet in a frat, you know, like Kyoraku, for example. He's the guy that, you know, he's the party goer, he's the ladies man and all that, but he's somebody that you can depend on. And Ukitake, he might be like the frail person, but he's somebody that can lead you into battle or lead you into an event or something, and somebody that you can fully trust. And you know, also they are two very powerful individuals, and they also have the only two-bladed Zanpakutos in the Soul Society, and they are great. We don't get to see their powers yet, but they are splendiferous. But we do get to see Yamamoto's Shikai. All things burn to ash. Ryujin Jaka. Basically, it's a fire Zanpakuto, but not just any fire Zanpakuto. Oh, no. This thing gets hyped up to no end. It is hyped to be the oldest Zanpakuto. It's hyped to be the strongest Zanpakuto. This shit is real. Now, I don't get to see this fight, unfortunately. It's off screen, but they don't really fight to the death. It's more of just a, I assume just like a little game or whatever, but this, again, is just so good, because again, just those breadcrumbs that we're getting about characters and their motivations and, you know, their backstories and how they are as people and as individuals. So looking forward to when we get to talk about more of who they are as people. Now, the other skirmish I want to talk about is Soifone versus Yoruichi. So Yoruichi comes in as Soifone is punishing some other Soul Reapers that kind of betrayed the Soul Society and all that, but they were part of the good squad. Yoruichi comes in, takes her to a different area, and they has a fight. And not only do they has a fight, they has a history, and this history is something that I actually kind of want to talk about. There's a big difference between the anime version of this backstory and the manga version of this backstory. A little bit of a joke is that Soifone is a lesbian towards Yoruichi. Cool, neat, okay, awesome, fine, whatever. You know, you do you, girl. But that's mainly from the anime point of view, because the anime, yeah, they get a lot of things right with like the admiration that Soifone had for Yoruichi, the abandonment she felt for Yoruichi, but they mainly added more things that are like affectionate. So like they have this scene where Soifone is training and then she just kind of chills out with Yoruichi and they're kind of like snuggling together a little bit. It's kind of, basically it's a lot different than what the manga did, which the manga actually kind of, with just a couple extra sentences thrown in, did more for Soifone's character than the anime did. Basically with the manga, there's more stuff about, just throwaway lines too, about how Soifone grew up in a household that really valued strength, and she was like the youngest of a bunch of kids, mainly males, and all her brothers died. And yeah, of course she was, you know, kind of sad that they died, you know, because they were brothers, but she was mainly upset at the fact that they were so weak that they died. Whereas with Yoruichi, she admired her not only because of her strength, because she was a female leader, and that really speaks into why her admiration turned into an obsession of Yoruichi, to the point where like she would have done anything for her. And then of course her sense of abandonment really just hit her hard, and that gave her resentment to the point where now she's trying to kill Yoruichi. And you know, she's holding her own against her. You know, she, you know, releases her Zanpakuto. It's like what was it, Suzume Bachi, where it's like this stinger that's on her middle finger, and basically it's like a 2-hit move where if she hits it twice, you're dead. You know, and she's hit Yoruichi multiple times with it. You know, granted, that's only because she needs to hit her at the same spot. But anyway, she's holding her own, and then she like starts kind of monologuing a little bit how she created this new technique, but it's actually not a new technique. It's something that Yoruichi knows as well, and it has a name. I think it's called Shunko? Yeah, so she basically just outclasses Soifone, and Soifone just kind of breaks down. She's just like, look, I could have forgiven why you left. Just why didn't you take me with you? And that's pretty much the end of that confrontation. Next, we have Ichigo versus Byakuya, which still held up to this day. You know, it's still really cool. You know, Ichigo was still trying to big himself up, saying that he's going to destroy Byakuya and his Bankai. Like, he keeps telling Byakuya to unleash his Bankai. Unleash your Bankai. Unleash your Bankai. And of course, Byakuya's talking down to him. He's just like, you know, my Bankai is not saved for you, boy. Why am I going to show some low life my Bankai, boy? And Ichigo just keeps trying to antagonize him and trying to get him to unleash his Bankai. And so he finally does. And Ichigo is no match for it. So he's just like, okay, maybe I was kind of egging you on a little too much. That's what I get for just using my Shikai. Just using your Shikai? Okay, Ichigo, so you reached Bankai. Yes, he did. And we get that iconic transformation of Ichigo into his Bankai form. And Byakuya is not impressed. He's just like, that's your Bankai? It's so small. It's so fragile. Like, how dare you tread upon our sacred traditions? Like, how dare you do that? I'm going to teach you that thing is not a Bankai. But Ichigo teaches him differently. It's like, no, this is a Bankai. And basically what Ichigo did was all the power that goes, all the grand power that goes into a Bankai, he basically condensed it into a smaller sword, but kept the power, but most importantly turned like that grandness of it into speed. So most of Ichigo's power comes from his speed, like how fast his blade goes and how quick he can get into an opponent's blind spot. And we see that during their fight, you know. Even Byakuya like starts using his hands to control his blades of his Bankai, and Ichigo keeps schooling him. He even gets to his blind side twice. The first time is just like, it's that iconic moment of like Ichigo having his blade at Byakuya's throat. While they're having this fight, you know, Ichigo's friends make it up on top of the hill. And they're just kind of reacting to this fight that Ichigo is having against Byakuya. And the one who's really just being affected by this fight is Orihime. Now, again, people always wonder, you know, why didn't we get signs of Orihime and Ichigo? It's right there if you look at it. You know, her caring about Ichigo to that extent, wanting to just be in the same presence as him, even though it's like shaking her to her core. She wanted to be there to make sure that he was going to be safe through all this. And Uryu recognizes this. He's like, look, Ichigo, if you die, I'm going to kill you. It's as plain as that. So Ichigo and Byakuya keep fighting, and Byakuya ends up using the true form of his Bankai, which is basically like all those like little tiny blade petals. They basically all make these infinite swords, and it makes like this dome around them. So it's basically like an execution ground. Ichigo and Byakuya still have their fight, but Ichigo's like, why is Byakuya getting faster? He said that this wasn't really a power-up from what he just had. But Byakuya, again, just like he told Renji, told Ichigo, there's a reason that you spend years after achieving Bankai to master it, because you are actually getting slower. You cannot keep up with me in Bankai. I will win this fight. And Ichigo, he's realizing this, like, his limbs can't move. He can't move his legs, can't move his arms, he can't move at all. So what does he do? He doesn't do anything. But a hollow mask comes out and takes care of everything. Yeah, this moment was insane, especially when you first look at it. Because we know that Ichigo fought this like white version of himself, like this kind of reverse version of himself. And the thing even told him, hey, if you falter, if you are going to die, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen because I don't want to die. And if you can't handle the power, then I will. And he just comes out full throttle, just going after Byakuya with no remorse whatsoever. And when he's about to give the killing blow, Ichigo just tells him to disappear. He takes the mask off, just rips it off, and then him and Byakuya have one more clash, but not without saying, hey, if I beat you, Byakuya, I need to know why you wouldn't save Rukia. And he's just like, alright, fine, I'll tell you if you can defeat me. But I will kill you. So they go in for one more clash, and Ichigo actually wins the clash. So there's that. And we get the reason behind, well, we get part of the reason why Byakuya didn't save Rukia. Basically, Byakuya is a man of the law. And he is going to be someone that follows the law. He will uphold the law no matter who it is, whether it's family, friends, he is going to uphold the law. And Ichigo's just like, well, that's stupid. Why would you do that? It was your own sister. And then that's when, like, and now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of puts in that seed of doubt of, like, Byakuya actually wanting to fight the law, because he looks at Ichigo when he's saying all that, and he's like, huh, I was never your enemy, wasn't I? Your enemy was the Soul Society, not me. And so Byakuya leaves. He's like, I'm not gonna pursue Rukia anymore. You have won this fight, Ichigo. And as he's falling back, Orihime kind of like blocks him with her head, with her thick head, and you know, his friends take him back. So Ichigo wins the day. Isn't that just great? Oh yeah, we still have to find out what happened to Aizen and who killed him and the whole Ginichimaru thing. Yeah. So Hitsugaya and Rangiku, they end up going to what's called Central 46, which is basically the Soul Society's judicial branch. And they're basically the ones that give the Soul Reapers their missions. They're the ones that say, okay, this is what's going to happen. You gotta do it this way. End of story. They're basically the ones that tell the Soul Reapers what to do. They're the ones that actually Yamamoto has to report to. And Hitsugaya and Rangiku go into the Central 46, and they're all dead. Yeah, and not only just like recently dead, they've been dead for quite a while. They're just kind of looking at everything, and they're like, who could have done this? This is like old, dried up blood. And that's when Izuru shows up, and he's just like, what happened here? And then he left, and then those two chase after him. And Izuru's just like, you know, you guys could be chasing me, but what about Momo? And this guy's like, wait, what? I thought, no, I left her at Squad 10 barracks under a force field, so that way nobody could hurt her. And Izuru just laughs. He's just like, okay, well, first of all, Momo is a master of Kido, so she could get out of that barrier quite easily. Second of all, Momo has been following you this whole time. She can mask her presence with Kido. That's how good she is. And so Hitsugaya turns around. He's just like, oh shit, hell no. I need to go protect her. So he heads back to Central 46, and Rangiku and Izuru end up having a fight. Now, we don't get to see it. Basically, what we get to see here is just what their Zanpakutos are. And, you know, kind of a little bit more again with the breadcrumbs with Rangiku and Gin's relationship and all that. So Izuru's, called Wabisuke, basically doubles the weight of anything it cuts. Rangiku's like blocking all of his attacks from his released Zanpakuto, and then her sword goes down, but luckily for her power, Hineko, is basically just an ashen sword. So kind of, I want to say it's kind of similar to Senbon Zakuro, but just with ash. So yeah, she was able to defeat Izuru, but that was off screen again. But we cut over to where Central 46 is, and Momo gets confronted by Gin. And he's just like, Momo, I need to show you something. And because she's just like in this whirlwind, because she saw all the Central 46 people dead, she's questioning like Gin and Izuru and Hitsugaya, like she's questioning all of this. And so hopefully Gin can show her the answer she's looking for. And she finds one answer. Aizen's still alive. Yeah. He's just like, oh, hi, Momo. How you doing? I had to hide myself down here so I could do what I needed to do. And she's just like, oh, just shut up. I love you so much. And he's just like, oh, that's what I love about you, Momo. You're so admirable. You're so loyal. Now die. And he just like stabs her right in the chest. Oh, it's so good because she's an idiot. And then Hitsugaya comes by. He's just like, Aizen, Gin, what are you two doing here? And he's just like, oh, well, why don't you check out the dead weight back there? And of course, Momo's dying, and Hitsugaya is pissed, so he releases his Bankai right then and there, but he doesn't get a chance to use it because Aizen just cuts him down. Yeah, Aizen is just ridiculous. And then he gets confronted by Unohana and Isane, who, after just getting done dropping off the lieutenants who lost to Ichigo at the Squad 4 barracks, they went to the Central 46 to figure some stuff out, because Unohana had a hunch due to something about like her investigations with this doll that Aizen used, which when I say doll, it actually wasn't anything. It was actually Aizen's released Zanpakuto Toe called Kyoka Suigetsu. And basically, without going into too much detail, it is complete and perfect hypnosis. And, you know, Isane, she's just like, wait, no, that's not what that sword is. You showed us by releasing it. And this is when you just start to realize the genius of Aizen. Aizen, and this goes back earlier in this video, when I was talking about the score, when like Momo was confronting Hitsugaya, and like you hear the violin playing. When I was watching that episode, the only thing I could think of, instead of the melodrama that was happening, was just Aizen with a violin just playing it, being like, oh yes, that's right, oh yes, he's the one that killed me, yes, kill him, oh no, you died to him, oh how tragic, how sad, oh you soul reapers just listening to me and all that. And you know, he doesn't fight Unohana. In fact, he actually goes somewhere else. And we also find out that there was a third conspirator with Aizen. That's right, Tozen, the one person that could counter Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu. And the reason he can counter it is because Tozen's blind. Like, Kyoka Suigetsu needs eyesight in order to activate. So you need to see it. So Tozen, being the perfect counter, ends up just being with Aizen. So he sees Aizen as the path of less bloodshed, which we'll get to at a later date because kind of contradictory to some actions that he does later on, but whatever. Tozen ends up transferring Rukia and Renji because he confronts them. He transfers them to Sokyoku Hill where Aizen and Gin are waiting for them. So Unohana heals Momo and Hitsugaya, and she basically tells Isane to not only locate Aizen, Gin, and Tozen, but to also let everyone in the Soul Society know, all the captains, all the lieutenants, even the Ryoka. Let them know, hey, Aizen betrayed us, and so did Gin and Tozen, and they are on Sogyoku Hill, just chilling, doing whatever. Now, Ichigo's group, you know, they get the message, and some of them are taken back by this, but luckily Uryu's there. He's like, wait, this kind of makes sense. Because ever since we got here, Rukia's execution date kept getting pushed forward. So that was already odd to begin with, so this kind of makes sense, which means Aizen is after Rukia. So that gives Ichigo enough gumption to go up there and team up with Renji to fight Aizen, and that doesn't go as planned. That basically, like, and this is actually one of my favorite moments in any anime series, where Ichigo's going in, and you have the like the number one song, like if you feel like number one, like you have that playing. You have the MC song playing, and just he goes in for that slash, and it gets stopped by a single finger. And not only does Ichigo's attack get stopped, but the soundtrack gets stopped as well. It is the most hype shit ever, and I love it. And then Aizen just slices Ichigo, unfortunately not in half. He's just like, huh, you survived that, you're being only held by your backbone. And then we get like this information dump like you would never believe. First of all, Aizen was behind everything. He used Momo, Izuru, and Renji to their best benefits. He knew that Momo had this adoration for him, which he has the best line ever for it, that admiration is the furthest thing from understanding. God, I love that line so much. But yeah, he used Momo, used Izuru, he used Renji to an extent, but he knew that Renji was like a troublemaker, so he wasn't going to be able to really be much help to him. But he starts going on about like what he was doing. You know, there's a threshold that everyone ends up making it to, you know, in any form of their training, whether it's swordsmanship, hand-to-hand, Kido, all of that stuff. There's a threshold that they meet where they just can't get better than that, whether you're a Soul Reaper, human, or a Hollow. So the only way to break that wall is to become a Hollow, or to become a Soul Reaper, or to become a human. You know where I'm going with this. So how does one do that? You know, we saw it through like Ichigo's training, because he remembers back when he transformed into a Hollow, you know, definitely against his fight with Byakuya. Aizen just goes on about how there's this thing that Kisuke Urahara made. And then he says, wait, isn't that why you're here, right? To take Rukia back for Kisuke. And then that's when we see what Kisuke was actually up to, why he was so willing to help Ichigo. Like, there's just so many threads that go into this. Okay, so Kisuke created this thing called the Hogyoku, which can like break these limitations, break these barriers. It could turn a Hollow into a Soul Reaper, a Soul Reaper into a Hollow, and Aizen wanted this thing because he made so many experiments. He made Hollows that could mask their presence, which in the manga we got that as the panel of Hisagi and the other three, Renji, Izuru, and Momo, having to fight that thing. We saw one that he created that could, you know, take over a Soul Reaper and destroy a Zanpakuto, the same one that killed Kai and Shiba. So literally Aizen was behind everything. He even talks about how like he knew Ichigo and them were going to come from the West Rukon district, how he sent squads 3 and 9 to that gate, had Gin take them out personally, knew that they would have to go to Kukakushiba to get in through the flower crane cannon method into the Soul Society, you know, throwing everything into a tizzy, you know, even taking out some of the captains and some of the captain level threats on the way. Ichigo's group actually helped Aizen to a T, and then Aizen, he's just like, you know, all I wanted was this Hogyoku, and there was only 2 ways to get it. One way was to use the Sogyoku. That's why, you know, he had Rukia, which, I didn't even talk about that part. There's just so much. Anyways, I'm just all over the place with this part because it's so fucking good. Okay. So Kisuke, he wanted to hide the Hogyoku from Aizen. He knew Aizen was after it, and so his best way to do it was to hide it within a soul. But he didn't have any souls to really do that with until Rukia came along. Kisuke had created this Gigai, which would actually like make a Soul Reaper weaker and take away their powers. So that's the Gigai that he actually gave to Rukia, and we actually see like foreshadowing of this earlier in the series, where like Rukia had to go to Kisuke about like the Gigai not working and all that stuff, and like how it would be uncomfortable and how her powers really weren't coming back. He hid it inside of Rukia's soul. So the only way to get it, again, was to have the soul like be disintegrated by something as powerful as the Sogyoku, or something that Aizen found out was to just like use this technique where like it breaks apart the soul and he can get it, but then it puts the soul back together. So we're still gonna kill Rukia, which that didn't happen because Byakuya stood in the way of Gin's attack going forward. And then that's when all the other captains come in. Komomura even tries to get in on Aizen. Aizen just stops him and uses a level 90 Kido spell on a captain and instantly defeats him. Granted, it's not even at the third of its power, but it wasn't even at the third of its power without an incantation. So the incantation thing makes the spells more powerful, in case you didn't know. Like, Aizen is ridiculously strong, and it's shown here, and it's so fucking good. Oh, Yeah, all the other captains and lieutenants come by. They, do their things. Yoruichi and Soifone have Aizen pinned down. Rangiku has Gin, and Isagi's there with Tozen. And Aizen's just like, okay, well, you're all here. That's great. That's wonderful, but bye. And that's when, like, all of these Menos Grande, the Gillions, like, appear from the skies, and, like, these light beams go down right onto Aizen, Tozen, and Gin, and they're basically gone. Like, these light beams are sending them to the realm of the Hollows, and they're already in another world. And we get some tearful goodbyes. Tozen gets talked down to by Momora, who's just like, is this your true sense of justice? Is this your path of justice? And that's when we get the line of, justice is the road with less blood, and I'm going to follow that road no matter where it takes me. There's that. There's Gin being, kind of playing with Rangiku, and also having like a sad face to it too. Saying, sorry, I wish I could have been your prisoner a little longer. And then, of course, Aizen lifting up, and Ukitage's being like, what was this all for? And Aizen, I love it so much. He just takes his glasses off, disintegrates them, pushes his hair back, and he's just like, I alone will stand at the top. The seat is open, and I will be there. And that's where Aizen goes. He says goodbye to everybody, and says, oh, bye, Ryoka boy. You were interesting for a little while. And that's where we end the Aizen stuff. At least with Soul Society. So next we have the fallout of the arc. Not too much to say about this part. Squad 4 starts healing everybody. They're very impressed by Orihime and her powers of healing and all that. And the biggest thing from this is actually Byakuya talking to Rukia, and he tells her everything. Beginning of the day of the execution, we see a picture of this woman in a frame that Byakuya closes, and it was his late wife, and she looks a lot like Rukia. Turns out it was Rukia's older sister who abandoned her in the Rukon district. Byakuya found her and married her, and he was married to her for like 5 years, and she tried to find Rukia for all those 5 years. And she didn't, and her relationship with Byakuya was so great that she asked him to look for Rukia and to welcome her into the family, which he did a year later. And because of all this, he broke a lot of laws, not only by marrying somebody from the Rukon district, but for bringing somebody from the Rukon district into the family. So after he took Rukia in, he actually went to his parents' grave and said that he would never break the law again. So just adds more layers into why he didn't save Rukia. The fact that, he had promised his late wife, somebody that gave him such joy in life, he promised her that he would not only find her sister, but protect her with his life. But he also had this promise to his own flesh and blood family, his mother and father, that cared for him and nurtured him and grew him into the man that he is today. He promised on their graves that he would not break the law ever again. He realizes that he chose wrong, that he should have just stuck with his love and his own life. And it's so good. It's just so good. It's done in a really good way, because again, the way Kubo does things, by just giving you little bits and pieces of the recipe, so then when you finally have everything, you just put it in and let it marinate. Yeah, everybody's, healing. A week goes by. Everyone's in high spirits, Got Squad 11 chilling in Squad 4 barracks. Ichigo's running away from Kenpachi because Kenpachi wants to fight him to the death again. Momora and Hisage are talking about Tozen in front of Tozen's late friend's grave and all that, who, she was the one that kind of gave him the Zanbakuto and kind of gave him the sense of justice to have and all that. Rangiku and Izuru make up. They get drunk together and find out that Rukia is missing. Yeah, Orihime tries to find Rukia because Uryu had made everybody clothes to have, and she wanted to give Rukia's dress to her. And Rukia's gone, and her and Ichigo are just looking for her, and it turns out she's over at the Shiba place, and she's there to apologize to Kukaku and Ganju. Apparently, Kukaku already knew what had happened because Ukitake told her what had happened a while ago. So she knew that whenever Rukia came to apologize, she would immediately just forgive her. And we find out that Rukia's just going to stay behind and that everyone else is going to just go back to the real world. And Ukitake gives Ichigo one last thing. He gives him this badge. It's like a Soul Reaper badge. It's called a Substitute Soul Reaper badge. And basically what that is, it's something that they give to some Substitute Soul Reapers. Nothing else besides that. Yeah, so yeah, Urahara meets them in the real world, and he apologizes to Ichigo. He's just like, look, I'm sorry. I know you heard. I know you figured it out. Just, I'm sorry. And Ichigo's just like, look, I'm not the person you need to apologize to, but thank you anyways. And everyone's sent home, and that's the end of the Soul Society arc. I mean, what else? What other grade can I give this arc other than an A? Like, this had a lot of action to it, a lot of things that are still being set up for the overall story and overall character arcs, and like, just, again, I know I've said it multiple times in this video alone, but Kubo has such a good way of just like leaving little trails for us to have and little just pieces of the recipe for the overall story and overall characters of Bleach to just, when we finally have it all, it's so good and so savory. And just, I'm glad I'm revisiting the series now, because it's been a while, and with the way I kind of think about things now, I'm kind of glad that I'm able to think more about the series like this, in this kind of way. But Soul Society arc, it's an A overall. I mean, it's a great arc. But what did you think about the arc? You know, have you read it? Have you watched it? What are your thoughts about the Soul Society arc? You know, even as a whole, you know, even with part 1 being somewhat of a slower pace, you know, just let me know what you thought of it. You know, a lot of stuff happened in this arc, and hopefully I kind of talked about it and talked to you about some of my thoughts about other things. I mean, just even the dynamic of the court guard squads, like all 13 of them. You know, I'm sitting here and I actually kind of came to a realization that they're all kind of like a gang. Like, the court guard squads, they're all a gang, but there's like 13 sections of it. Like, I can go on for a long time about that. Maybe I'll do a video about that. Maybe a fun Bleach video about that. I don't know. Again, leave a comment down below. Be sure to like the video if I entertained you in any way, shape, or form. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my other content. And so you don't miss any of that content, hit the bell icon so you get notified of every time I upload a video. And as always, people, I've been your world champion. Catch you guys in the next video. See you.
I don't need you. Better things are coming on the way.